It is a cold, extremely windy day here in Hightstown, New Jersey, and we're here live to give homework help to a waiting audience of eager students ready to learn. Learn what, you ask? Why, learn evolution, of course. Hundreds of millions of years, if not billions of years, of happenstance, circumstance, mutations, and selection have led us to this moment in time, this moment where we go over the evolution test review sheet. That's what it's all come down to, folks. Hundreds of millions, nay billions of years, all for this piece of paper right here. So without any further pageantry, without any other pomp and circumstance, let's start going over this bad boy. That's it for my announcer voice. Announcer voice is done. So these structures, we've got a lot of evidence for evolution. That was a big part of the early unit. Things like homologous structure, vestigial structure, analogous structure. Those were 3 pieces of evidence for evolution. My dog is sniffing at the door and I'm waiting for him to scratch. DNA. It's a huge piece of evidence for evolution. In the honors classes, we did the amino acid lab. The amino acids are a huge piece of evidence of evolution because your DNA code leads to your amino acids. So if your amino acids are the same, that tells you the DNA was the same. And the more amino acids you have in common, the more genes you likely have in common. So there's a link there. What am I missing? Oh, embryos. We saw an image of embryos. I don't know if I could pull up a picture of that, but when you look at the embryos of different living things, the embryos look very, very similar. And the reason they look so similar is because we have a small set of DNA, a small set of genes, responsible for us developing as embryos. So we inherit those genes from a common ancestor. And they've undergone change. It's been a very long time since that ancestor was on Earth, so there certainly has been change in those genetics. But there's still enough similarity that you can see how close we are, how closely related we are, by looking at us in our embryo form and comparing us to other embryos. Let me see something real quick. Let me see. Here, let me, oh, mouse froze. Come on. Don't do this to me. Bam, look at that. Look at that. That's history right there. That's history in the form of embryos. See how similar we are in our overall structure and whatnot. If I were to blank out the fact that says fish, bird, reptile, human, you'd be hard pressed to guess which one is which. If I just said, hey, what animals are these? You'd be like, zebra. Because that's what happened in class. People are like, zebra? Seahorse? So yeah, you get to see it. And fish evolved earliest on Earth. Water animals were there before land animals. And when you look at the embryo, look at how simple it is. Because it hasn't undergone all this crazy amount of selection on land that the other 3 have undergone. So it still retains a simple embryo form as a result. Much simpler animal. Its basic template evolved much earlier. So there's evidence in all of that. It's a lot of evidence. Now when we talk about structures, I'll give you a picture of that. When we talk about structures, We talking about structure. Yes, we are, Allen Iverson. Yes, we are. So when we're talking about structures, this is what we're talking about. Common ancestors, similar DNA, gets passed on to many different types of animals and organisms. At one point, there was an animal that had the genes for a basic bone structure in the limbs, the arms in this case. That basic bone structure in the genetic code was large, shoulder, arm, bicep type bone, 2 littler forearm bones after that, tiny little wrist bones, and then a whole bunch of little finger bones. And you could see that same exact layout with us, with a kitty cat, with a whale, because whales came from some type of land animal, a wolf-like ancestor, and so it still retains that overall bone structure, including fingers and a wrist, to forearm bones. Who knew? A whale. Yeah, that's right, Benny. Benny knew. Benny's a genius. He's a genius dog, let me tell you. Benny is a genius dog. He doesn't like when I sing the song. Well, that's a good example of evidence for evolution. The wind is so strong that Benny is barking. What, Ben? Come here. Come here. Yeah, no, I know. It's wind. Yeah, it's a byproduct of nature. Yeah. No, I know it's loud. I hear it. I have ears too. I know you're a dog and yours are more powerful. Don't talk over me. All right. I get it. Okay. Hey, Ben. Ben, why don't you come over here for a second? Come here. Come. Good boy. Good boy. Easy. Good boy. I know. It's wind. Yeah, I know. Sucks, huh? Good boy. Easy. Take it down a couple notches. You're at an 11, Benny. I need you at like a 3.5 at most. Yeah, this is better. Alright, so that's some evidence for evolution. Let's see. What else? Natural selection. If you look in the description for this video, I put a little joke, a reference to natural selection in there. Because natural selection is all about, hey, let's say you have a tiger who's slower than molasses, and he runs out of breath after like 10 running steps. Then you have a tiger who was born with much stronger leg muscles, and he could run further, jump farther, hit harder, bite harder. Obviously, yes, 10 people in the street, 10 people are going to say, oh yeah, the stronger tiger's going to live better. It's probably going to get food, probably going to survive. The other one's going to get too tired. It might starve. So, natural selection. The animal with the best traits in the environment is more likely going to survive and reproduce. In this case, our stronger tiger would be the one that is naturally selected. Artificial selection. Think about any breeder, dog breeding. People purposely let the best milk producing cows reproduce, but not the other ones. So, humans selecting certain traits. That's that. Genetic drift, another process of evolution. These are all processes through which evolution occurs, by the way. So genetic drift is just luck. Usually a smaller population can be affected by genetic drift. It just, by random luck, it just so happens that only the pink flowers got to pollinate. The pink was not a survival advantage in the particular environment it was in. It's just that it was luck. The wind happened to blow the seeds just right. The wind has nothing to do with color, but it just so happened to blow those seeds, and so the pink flowers reproduce. That's luck. Happens more often with a smaller population. So genetic drift, luck, can cause evolution, change in population. As for the type of structures up here, the one I showed you, the arm bones, where'd they go? The arm bones, these are homologous because this template is inherited from a common ancestor. Now, if you were to talk about the opposable thumb that we have, our thumb is very particular. We did not get our opposable thumb, at least not that, the use that we have for it and in its current form. We don't share that necessarily with a whale and a cat. So even though this basic structure might be homologous from a common ancestor, certain parts of this structure, certain individual parts, are not homologous. They're from different ancestors. So cat has its own little, finger over here, thumb-like finger, and we have our own, and they're, much better example would be our eyes. I forget. I think we have compound eyes. I don't know. I forget what eyes. I'm not like a ophthalmologist or anything, but so do octopi. Octopus has the same type of eye that we do, but we didn't get the eye from a common ancestor. It developed. There were two separate evolutionary journeys, and just by random luck, we happened to develop that kind of eye during our evolutionary journey with our common ancestors, with our ancestors, and the octopus had its own unique ancestors that happened to get the same type of eye by like mutation and random mutation and chance. So that is called analogous, when you have similar traits, but it's not from the same ancestor. That's analogous structure. You have vestigial, which the whale's forearm doesn't really have much of a purpose compared to us. Whales used to have leg bones. Ancient whales, not modern day whales, but ancient organism, an ancestor of the whale. They used to still have leg bones. The leg bones were utterly useless, so that's called a vestigial structure. A bone from a common ancestor that has no use. Vestigial structure. So homologous and vestigial from a common ancestor, and analogous is not. And there's the big diff. What's the diff? That's the diff. Number one, how do these all relate? Well, stop barking, Benny. Your DNA is this whole code, right? And a section of DNA can be a gene, right? Now, the specific type of gene that you get would be an allele, right? So you can get a specific section of DNA which gives you a specific variation of a trait. So your section of DNA, your gene, is responsible for a trait, which is your phenotype, is a physical trait. So your gene is responsible for your physical trait. But the specific gene you get, blonde hair versus brown versus red, the specific gene is called an allele, and that gives you your specific trait variation, right? So it's not like there's nobody that walks around and just goes, oh yeah, I have hair color. No, you go, oh, I have blonde hair. We all have hair color. It's true. We have that trait. We have that hair color gene, but you go a little bit further. We've got an allele that also gives us a variation. So that's how they all relate to one another. And then you can take that further. How do they relate to evolution? Think about that for a second. Okay, it's enough time to think. You could pause the video if you want and think some more. So, how do they relate to evolution? Well, the specific gene, the allele, the specific gene you get, that gives you a specific variation, can help you survive better. So you can be naturally selected based on the allele that you've got. Maybe the allele for brown hair helps you blend in more, and so that variation, because of that allele, is that's going to help you survive better. Mutations, changes to your genes, changes to your alleles, can then give you different variations, which maybe those will be selected instead. So even if the environment doesn't change, if there's a mutation that causes a new form of a trait to show up that is better in the environment, that new form of the trait might start outcompeting the old, and so eventually that whatever the old trait was kind of gets selected away over time. Oh, crud. I don't remember if I left this in on the honors review sheet. I hope I didn't. I think I remembered to take it out because we don't need to know that right now. It's a little bit of science history, but we don't need to know it. So, yeah, let's get rid of that. 4 types of evidence. Okay, well, we just went over all the evidence and how they are evidence. So Darwin obviously went on the boat trip, and he collected all sorts of different animals who were similar, like finches. And he looked at what was different about them in different environments. Some of them had traits that blended in with the environment, whether it was color or the size of beak maybe helped them get food that was particular to their environment. So he was able to look at the traits that matched the environment and able to come up with his idea of natural selection, that, hey, the ones with the best traits, they happen to survive better. That's why you see a link between environments and traits. Hardy-Weinberg, that was something we recently did, I think in one class, but not the other. The other class, I think, does it next time. So you should have this in your notes. So I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil that because I think the other class still has to go over it. But it's right in your notes, conditions, importance of it. Bell curves, evidence of natural selection. Shows you which type of trait is surviving more than the others. Oh my god, I just realized I didn't even listen to see if my volume was working this whole time. Shows you which type... Okay, thank god it was. Whew, that would have really stunk. Okay, colors, beige, white, and brown spots. Draw the bell curve. Be able to redraw the curves. Disruptive, stabilizing, directional. Okay. Let me see if I could pull up the bell curve stuff real quick. I gotta find it. Alright, does this show up? I don't even know if this shows up. Where's the thing? No, it doesn't show up. Okay. Here we go. So, instead of beak size right here, let's say this is color. Beige in the middle. White over here. Brown over here. So white on the left, brown on the right, beige in the middle. It said there was mostly beige environment, so we would predict that the beige lizard would probably survive the best. So this would be the peak of the lizard population, is right around where beige is. White and brown, yeah, there's white and brown spots, so they're surviving a little bit, but not a lot. And when there are ways that the environment could change, and as a result, ways, which is a good app for navigating traffic, but ways that the trait frequency can change. I'm going to show you some of them. One way would be to take this whole bell right here and just move it over. Looks the same, but you move it over. So maybe the peak is where brown is, and that's called directional selection. Right here in this example, Gesundheit, you can see the example there. So, it's directional. Stabilizing is when the middle survives even better. See that? See how our first bell with the dashed lines only goes up this high, and it's wider? After selection, the bell is thinner and it's taller, because the middle's doing even better. That's stabilizing selection. And then you've got disruptive selection, where you get the arches over here. Because two traits are doing the best. And the middle is no longer doing the best. See that? The middle is down here. Right? So that's how you redraw those bell curves. Evolution's just a theory. Scientific theory has to be backed by tons of evidence. It has to be tested repeatedly and stand up to repeated testing and new evidence. So theory is, there's many aspects of a theory that are fact. So when you say it's just a theory, it's like, it's just a fact. Yeah, it's a fact. It's true. Like, duh. Now, certain theories aren't as solid as others. Evolution is an extremely solid theory that's withstood a ton of testing. Listen, explain all the ways that an organism could develop a new trait or variation of a trait via genetic change. Oh, my back. So, one way is gene shuffling. During reproduction, the genes of the parents mix together, so you get a combination of your parents' genes. That's why you have a mix of their traits, usually. So that's one way. And mutations. Random genetic change. Something no one else has. Could be given to you by random mutation. Why can't natural selection occur if there is no variation? I don't know. Why can't natural selection occur if there's no variation? Why is that? I don't know. You tell me. I quit. Alright, I'll tell you. Well, if there's no variation, if everybody has the exact same trait, how are you going to select which trait is better? You can't, because everybody has the same trait. Doesn't work. A friend points to the fact that octopi and humans have similar eyes, despite being in completely different environments. Is there an explanation for this? What is this type of evolution called? What about the fact that armadillos and anteaters live on completely different continents and share similar traits? It's called convergent evolution. I believe that on the modified study guide that I gave to the honors class that I put the definition for coevolution, and I rephrased some of these questions to help because they were terms we can go over. But yeah, it's called convergent evolution, and it's just random mutations just happen to lead to two completely different animals having very similar traits. And it's just luck because of mutation in this case. Genetic drift is like there's already a population with different traits, or there's a population that's small with different traits, and because of luck, one of those traits gets selected over another. Mutation is a different kind of luck. It's different from genetic drift. Mutation is just during reproduction. If there's a mutation in just the right gene, then by luck, you get a totally new variation on or trait with that gene. So maybe nobody has white hair, but because of the mutation you get by random luck, you got white hair. So it's not the same as genetic drift. You're not selecting an entire population. It's a random mutation, just a random luck change in one gene for one individual. So there's your difference, because that question might come up in your mind on the test. Who knows? How might two organisms have co-evolved? One of them gets a mutation that gives it a trait, like let's say all the little hairs on the bee, and those little hairs help it to pollinate flowers more easily. And then the flower that happens to get a mutation that attracts bees more often, well, that flower will outcompete all the other flowers. So you've got these traits that keep evolving that further the relationship between these two organisms. Notice again, like mutations are a big part of all this, because a lot of random traits could develop that way and then get selected after. Adaptive radiation. Finches. How could adaptive radiation occur in each? That's a lot to come up with. You could think about the types of isolation. Maybe fish, they have a different mating dance. Like they swim in a circle versus swim in zigzags. And so they start to separate reproductively. And then because of their grouping and what they like to eat, maybe one of them selects to eat crawfish and the other one selects to eat plankton. So one of them starts developing sharp, hard teeth, and the other ones have like almost no teeth. It's like all these little differences start building up in what used to be one fish population. And so you start with one fish population, and you end up with sharp teeth fish, flat teeth fish, no teeth fish, tiny teeth fish, uh, different colored fish, different mating dance fish, and they all start to become different species because they're all separated by behavior, by choice. In this example, peacocks, another behavioral example, with the feathers. Maybe one group likes pink feathers, the other likes multicolored and green, and so they choose not to mate. The finches, maybe they fly to different islands, but because of like continental drift, the land masses start to split apart further. They can't fly to the islands anymore, and they're just isolated on their own islands. And their islands each hold unique food and unique tree colors and leaf colors. And so they go from being one type of finch to many different types of finches with different colors and different beak sizes for different foods on different islands. So there you go. And then you could have thrown temporal, I guess, at the fish because it says use one type of speciation for one organism, but I wasn't reading. I was rushing through. So they made at different times, one at night, one during the day. Different food comes out at night, different food during the day, and they develop different traits as a result. Bam, there you go. Plenty of resources. That's going to result in many different types of traits being selected. So that means adaptive radiation will be more likely to really take root because more resources means selecting different traits. Different traits being selected can help drive separation between organisms. And so you start with one, you end up with many. And I believe I did this before. So that's it. Nice little review sesh. I was going to say session, and then I went like shush, and it just threw me off. So that's it. I hope it helps. I hope it helped whoever happens to come here. 30-minute review session. I probably should have kept it a little lower than that, but, you know, it is what it is. Alright. Goodbye, everybody.